Are you a doctor trying to elevate your practice and make your impact on the world long lasting? Ready to go from a hustler to a CEO? Man, you already know. Welcome to the Michael Buffington Show, the podcast that's transforming the lives of doctors. You ready? Let's go.
Hey, I'm Michael, and welcome back to the show. Today, since so many times I want to talk about the frameworks of power, production, profit, and protection, I'll spend some time on that powerful component and really how people generate confidence, clarity, and certainty, and the frameworks that we use to help doctors do that, and even other business owners do that. But today I want to come back and actually give you something practical, something that I make sure once you're in that powerful state, in that position to go and execute and do these things, that you have some tactical things that you can put into action and really get those results that we see skyrocket when people do these things. So in that production piece, if you will, I want to do something and just use a tool that I developed in using Game Changer, but it's not necessarily new information, but like all information, it's only as good as the application of it. So I'm hopeful I'm going to dig in here today, make this super simple for you, and I hope that you're going to take it and run with it because it truly will change things beyond what you will believe. And even as I say that right now, you may feel a little pushback inside of you. Hang tight because it's not complicated. It is simple. But that doesn't mean it's easy. That doesn't mean that people do it. That doesn't mean that the consistency of it will not work, because I see it over and over and over for myself, for the doctors in Game Changer, for other people in business that do this relentlessly. So here it is. And in our world, we just call it a weekly review. Really complex, right? A weekly review. Now, how often, ask yourself the question, how often do you really assess where you are? Now, there are a lot of assessments. I mean, we do a practice production assessment. We do what we call a Game Changer assessment. This is not even those. Those are much more involved and also have a lot of value in them. But this is a really concise piece. But the question remains, how often do you assess yourself? So I talk around this in different parts of life, right? In your body. How do people assess themselves commonly? So let's just clear this up, the context of this for a moment. And that is, you'll step on a scale, right? You'll see what you weigh. You maybe, if you go to the extremes, and I would consider this somewhat of an extreme, you measure yourself. Now in today's world, right, you could go get a DEXA scan or something, so it tells you literally the fat breakdown, the muscle breakdown, the size of your right arm, your left arm, your right leg, your left leg. And if you've never done that, it's really a cool assessment tool because it can tell you really where you are. Right? Back in the day, back in my generation, still used sometimes, but not as much. You use like a caliper. They'd come in and measure and do some calculations, and that would determine your body fat percentage. So those are some of the ways that you would assess your fitness. In health, right? We use labs. We use other kind of diagnostic tests. We could use MRIs. We could use X-rays. That's commonplace in the chiropractic space. We could use HRV. We could do all these things to assess how someone is working. Now, marriage, that's exactly why I created the marriage map, to help assess marriage. And you could go to a counselor, right, to get some assessments done on your marriage. You could take some online profiles that have some merit and understanding. Taking those profiles on over into business primarily, although it's used a little bit personally also, you could do like a Colby. If you've never heard of a Colby A or a Colby B, those are our assessments. DISC, many of you, if you've been around the business world and you're looking for another level, you've most likely encountered these. Or if you're an entrepreneur, or if you work with someone maybe that you're part of their development team, you're getting these assessments done. So could we all agree that assessments are vital, and assessments do give you good information to tell you where you are? I call this part of the dream equation. And while today's episode is not on the dream equation, it's like the current reality. You have to know what is your current reality. You have to know that location. If you don't know that location and where you are in this moment of time, how are you to go anywhere else? So now that you kind of have an understanding, at least the fervor in which I attack assessments, it's like I am constantly assessing myself. And if you don't assess yourselves, you won't progress. Now, hear me again on that. You will not progress. I have never seen anyone that is unwilling to measure themselves make progress. Could you for a day? Yes. Could you for a week or two? Yes. Maybe even for a few years. But over a lifetime, as it really counts, if you're not continuing to assess yourself, you're losing out. So here's an opportunity for you, and that is, it's the same in business, okay? You're going to hear this from me over and over. So if you don't know your numbers, okay, you don't have any KPIs, you don't have a scorecard, you don't know what you're after in business, how are you going to attack the areas that you need to build in? How are you going to accurately really move yourself forward? Like, what does that look like? Well, it looks really shitty is what it looks like. It looks haphazard. And what'll happen, I've seen this in the chiropractic space. We tend to, and I grew up the same way early in practice, one of the primary assessments is how many people did I see in a week? Or maybe how many I saw in a day. The challenge with that, well, it could give you a context, right? Because if that number is going up, you could deduce, okay, I'm doing a better job, I'm getting good results, people are referring, et cetera, et cetera. And because of that, we'll make money. That's not always true. I've seen practices see a ton of people get great results, help a lot, still run a really poor business that is not profitable. I've also seen practices, and what I would recognize so often in chiropractors is that they won't actually, they ride this emotional roller coaster based on that number. How do I know? I rode the roller coaster for years. Like, I would literally base everything about my emotional state at the end of a day had to do with the number of people that I had seen or not seen based on the expectation that I had of myself. Sometimes with a few of my colleagues and friends that I used to mess with and be competitive with, and like, hey, how many people can we take care of today? That's what I did. The challenge with that is no matter how many people you see, somebody could always have seen more, which could be defeating. Or you have that one or two that maybe had an issue. So you may have seen 100 people, but if 2 people weren't getting better, 2 people had an issue with some facet of the practice or the business, whatever it was, it will take you, that's who you go home thinking about. You go home worrying about that. Now, if you were assessing that and there were an internal issue that needed to be addressed, that's a great thing. But if you're not assessing it, you're just riding that roller coaster, that wave of emotion on how it seemed to go that day. There really are no facts around it. So I'm a big facts versus feelings. Not that you don't need feelings, because you do, but that's, again, also another episode we'll get into. So here's the point. You need to assess yourself. So don't kid yourself and act as if you don't need to know these numbers around various parts of your life, your business, your marriage, your relationships, spirituality. Man, that's really, really tough one to assess. Honestly, that's my biggest challenge, to assess that. But I do want to at least consider it so I can make sure that I'm making progress. The ultimate assessment there is not going to be up to me, and I'm okay with that, but I want to make sure I'm taking my steps. So if you don't have this, you're, again, going to be floating in the wind. You're going to be all over the place, and it doesn't serve you. It will take your focus away, or you will focus on things that don't matter. So the same results year after year after year, like, that becomes disheartening. How many people do you know that are going to show up on New Year's and have a resolution to do something about their health, wellness, fitness? That's an easy one always to talk about.